expect more. And they will, I like to say, they put up their Sunday best. For example, when an inmate would go to speak to, say, a sergeant, he's going to act nicer than he would for a CO1. And I would imagine when he's talking to a lieutenant, a captain, he just tries to get nicer every time because he knows they wield enough influence and power to pretty much shut his day down. So he tries to put on the Sunday best all the time.
Okay. And you're familiar with one of the proposals that the PSCOA has put forth, the master rank and the other rank that we're trying to achieve here? Do you think that would be beneficial in your experience?
Absolutely.
And why do you say that?
Well, because it would obviously be a buffer zone between myself and the CO1. But now it will give them a direction where to go as far as an inmate that's a more seasoned officer instead of someone who may not have the experience or the communication skills to kind of conflict resolution I mean, on a daily basis. And it will give someone a reason to stay where you might not have the opportunity to, like I did, go to a new institution and advance through the ranks.
There's not new institutions. Well, there is one planned or two planned new institutions.
I don't know, that changes every time I hear a budget story, but I think there's 3 planned still.
But your situation, is your situation moving to a new facility and having more promotional opportunities? Is that the norm at the DOC?
If there's one being built, that's the norm.
Okay.
Obviously, I made a choice to move to Philadelphia. So.
And you're originally from what part of the state?
I'm originally from the Northeast. Yeah.
Okay. Now, in addition to working in the blocks, there's other sergeants, just like the CEO's testimony you heard before. There's different posts that you have to work as a sergeant, is there not?
Absolutely.
All right. And as a sergeant, are you required to know how to work every post?
I would certainly hope so, because if I'm going to tell you how to do something, I should know how to do it myself.
All right. And have you worked the search team at all, or the transport team at all, as a sergeant?
Those positions aren't usually sergeant positions.
Okay. Those are COs?
Yeah, but I have worked as a CO.
All right. And what about Sally Port, property intake, those types of positions?
I've done that for quite some time. Prior to coming out here, I was a South Port Sergeant at Chester. And prior to that, I was the R&D of the property sergeant, also for about 6 years. And the way I like to characterize both of those jobs is that I'm the first and last line of defense when it comes to stopping the introduction of contraband into the institution. If I'm not doing my job, bad things happen.
Now, the RHU unit at Chester, have you worked at the RHU unit?
That's right, I actually did that too. I was the RHU exercise sergeant.
Okay. And describe what, and we've heard some brief testimony about what an RHU unit is, but describe what that is.
Well, it's the restricted housing unit. It's where the guys who can't follow the rules, the inmates that want to be a problem, for whatever reason they want to act up. And there's a ton of other reasons how and why they'll end up in the RHU. While they're there, I'm responsible to make sure that they're, care, custody, and control. You get a lot of that, but pretty much it's exercise, showers, make sure they're taken care of while I'm there, and then roll out.
The ranks above you at Chester, let's talk about. The ranks above you are what? Above a sergeant.
Lieutenant, captain, major.
And how many, do you know off the top of your head, how many lieutenants, captains, and majors are there?
Off the top of my head, there's about 17 lieutenants, 6 or 7 captains, and 1 major.
Okay. And how many sergeants roughly? I think we've got
About 25.
So if you could summarize what would be the main function of a sergeant in the Department of Corrections?
Traffic cop. I used fireman before. I'll be a traffic cop now. I coordinated all the activity from staff, inmates, pretty much make sure everybody's doing their job.
When you work in a typical shift, an 8-hour shift, do you ever feel at ease during that 8 hours?
Oh no, you're constantly, you can't let your guard down. You really can't, because if the inmates aren't trying to get over on you, you're swearing, cameras looking at you, you might be doing something wrong. Trust me, you're never at ease, and I do believe that's, in a sense, the way you want to be. You don't want to become complacent. So you have to be on edge.
Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Wright?
Just a few quickly. Building upon what it was that you just said, you have to constantly be aware of the surroundings and what's going on. You mentioned earlier in your testimony that all you have in your position as a sergeant is a radio and a whistle. Do you also have a lot of contact with inmates day to day in your position?
There's varying degrees of contact. I mean, you could have up close and personal, right to the point of doing an escort. For example, with an RHU escort, I'm within inches to feet of you.
So, if I understand what you're saying correctly, it depends on the circumstances, but on any given day, you could have a lot of inmates contact.
Yeah, on any given day you could. Like, for example, if I'm in the Sally Port, I should have very little inmate contact other than guys that are on a bus or being taken outside to work outside.
Okay. And just so I understand your proposal that you were talking about for purposes of rank, if I understood your testimony correct, is that one of the rationale, one of the reasons that you're putting that forward is that your inexperienced officers should be complemented by an experienced officer. And the experienced officer should be identifiable not only to your coworkers, but also to the inmates. Because the more experienced officer is, in some cases, better prepared to deal with circumstances as they arise.
Yes.
Thank you.
Questions from the panel?
Just a couple. As I understand it, for COs, normal retirement is 25 years and age 50.
20.
20 years and age
20.
50. And is it your experience that a lot of COs will retire by age 50?
No.
They go beyond that?
Yes.
Now, you talked about this master rank,
Right.
which I understand the union is supposed to kick in at 20 years. And it would give someone a chevron so that they would be easily identifiable by the inmate. Correct?
Correct.
And presumably you said that you think the inmate would give more respect to that chevron.
Right.
Correct?
Absolutely.
So this would be somebody who would have regular and frequent contact with the inmates.
Once again, contact varies on what post you are,
Right.
but yes.
But I mean, in terms of if I'm going to get the respect of the inmate in order to maintain custody and control, I need that regular contact. Otherwise, I'm giving the chevron for nothing.
Not necessarily.
Okay, that's all.
I just have one question, and I was shocked to hear you say that corrections officers complain about things. What are the 3 top complaints that you hear in your institution?
3 top complaints.
Give me your top 3.
My top 3 would be basically reliefs. There's always complaint about reliefs, so that brings down to staffing and the VESAR. We've got to be the high ranking, very close number 2. Number 3, how about, I don't know, I really don't have a third. Those are 2 that I hear all the time.
Thank you.
Wait, you know what? I'm sorry, I do have a third. People like to complain that they don't get their days off too.
Okay. Sounds like my office. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I do need more time off, Sean. Thank you, Officer Walsh. Next, Officer Barger. When did you start your career with Department of Corrections?
1987.
Okay. And prior to starting with the Department of Corrections, when did you have any military service?
Yes, I was in the United States Army.
And what did you do in the United States Army?
I was a military police officer.
How long were you in the United States Army?
Just under 2 years.
Okay.
I actually got pregnant and I decided it wasn't planned, obviously. So I don't believe in being in the military, being pregnant, old-fashioned girl in that way. So I took the release and
you applied for the Department of Corrections. Can you tell us why you decided to apply for the Department of Corrections?
I am a dork when it comes to corrections. And I confess that honestly. All my life I wanted to be a correction officer. From the time I was a very little girl in Illinois, we used to pass the Marion prison. And it's a very huge prison, one of the largest in the state of Illinois. And it starts with a white fence, and we drove the highway, and I'd see that white fence, and the white fence would turn into the concertina wire, and then the concertina wire would higher walls, and then I'd see the prison, and I'd be like, one of these days I'm working there. That's gonna be so cool, prestigious. I'd see the officers walking in, for shift, and they just look so proud, and I wanted to be that.
Okay. So you apply to the Department of Corrections, and obviously you get hired. Where do you start your career? Where do you start your career in the Department of Corrections?
SCI, I want to say.
Okay, is that where you served your entire career?
Yes, I did.
SCI Muncie, is that a male or female facility?
When I started, it was both. It was a male and female institution, with only 350 inmates. Now, shortly after that, a couple of years into my career, they got rid of all the males, they shipped them out, and made it entirely a female institution.
So you've experienced both working with male inmates and female inmates?
Yes.
And what, at SCI Muncie, is it a newer facility, is it an older facility?
No, actually, it was built in, I believe, 1927, right around there. In 1953, I believe, or right around 53, that's when the Bureau of Corrections actually needed a correctional facility. So it's very old, the buildings are very old.
Okay. And is there air conditioning in it? What's the?
No. No.
The problems that you've experienced in working as a CO1 and CO2, in dealing with both female and male inmates, are there any difference between the problems that you face with male and female inmates?
If you ask most of my coworkers, they'll say that women complain more. But I guess if you ask most of the men in this room, they'll probably say the same thing.
No comment.
Okay. But there are more needs for female offenders.
Okay. Are the female offenders less violent? I mean, do you face
No, they're not less violent.
some of the issues that you've, the assaults or the fighting that you faced with the male inmates, does that occur with female inmates?
Absolutely.
Okay. And when did you become a CO2 sergeant?
Roughly approximately 10 to 12 years ago. I don't really remember the exact year.
Okay.
It's been so long.
And what did that process entail? Was that a written examination? Or?
Yes, written examination, interview. We had to make sure that your employee evaluations were up to par, and you didn't abuse leave. There was a lot of criteria, and I passed everything, and they picked me.
Now, has that changed today? Do they do any type of interview process after the written testing?
They do now, yes.
Okay. Was that the first time that you applied for the sergeant position?
Yes.
Okay. And the makeup of CO1s and CO2 at Muncie, is that, you were here yesterday when the slide was presented?
Yes.
Okay. How many, we have that information, but I want to talk about, if you know, ballpark figure of the lieutenants, the captains, the majors at Muncie.
And actually, when you asked Tim that question, I was actually trying to think. I believe between 12 and 15 lieutenants roughly.
Okay.
Captains, half that, not even.
And what about majors?
One.
Okay.
Right now, none. I must say.
Why is that?
He actually retired and they have not replaced him yet.
Okay. And the training that's involved in this, you get appointed to the position of CO2. What type of training, if any, did you go through?